Hello there, Sorry from 17 once again. This is my Dead Space 2 Zealot difficulty, no upgrades, no damage, and no shop run. This very first sequence here is going to be against two necromorphs who are rather unique in as much that you can kill them with 2 punches. And this happens because, of course, you do not have any weapons at this moment. So what I'm going to be doing here is showcasing what is capable on the PC version, which is incredibly fast turn speed, enabling you to use movement to bait the necromorphs into a single attack and then punishing them with 2 punches to kill them. You don't have to do that, of course. You can just pick up something in the environment and throw it at them. You can then steal their own weapons, which are their slashers, and then use them against them, much like I'm going to be doing in this sequence right now, where I kill him with the rod, and then I take his dismembered limb and kill his friend with it. This is, of course, Dead Space. In Dead Space, critical hits are the limb modifiers, so if you hit somebody in the leg or in the arm, you will get an increased damage modifier, which does more damage than shooting them in the chest or shooting them in the face. It's a little bit unconventional, but it's one of the most interesting aspects of this game. But why do this run, Chris? Why come back to Dead Space 2? So I've been hungering for this game a long time. I think this is one of the best games ever made. I find it to be just an absolute joy to play, and the last time I covered this, it was one of the first projects that I covered on my channel where I did a Zealot walkthrough. It still exists as well if you're interested in seeing how far we've come, but I put feelers out in my community to see if anybody would be willing to watch some Dead Space, and it got a big reception compared to a lot of the other things that I was potentially going to do next, so thus we come back to it now. And because I'm playing it on the PC, I wanted to do something a little bit ridiculous, and that's exactly what you're about to see. But once you get the plasma cutter, I'm going to be showing you some interesting strategies in here that you can do that you might not be aware of, and the first one is these fire extinguishers. The fire extinguishers, if you hit the necromorph's limbs, will actually shatter their limbs and give you a weapon to use, and you can use this to essentially not shoot at all in this room. You can do this entire room without shooting, but the guy at the end, who's on the gurney, has to be shot for some reason. It's one of those things where you seemingly can't get past him unless you shoot him, and nothing seems to kill him. It seems designed that way. So I've decided to come back to it, and it's a testament to just how good this game is, and how well balanced it is, and how well designed it is, that all of the restrictions that I'm going to be using are capable of making this a run. And it must be said, guys, that I'm going to do all of those restrictions all the way up to the final boss, and then the final boss I'm going to buy the contact beam from the shop. The reason for this is you have to break the marker 7+ times to beat the final boss under these conditions, and it's a really long and arduous and annoying fight, and I don't enjoy it too much. So I decided to use the contact beam, and it only takes 3 marker breaks. I think you can even do 2 marker breaks if you're quick, which is a lot more my speed. And the fun of the challenge run for me is about the main game and dealing with the situations that it presents you. The final boss is a gimmick fight. If it was a traditional boss, then I would gladly grind it out, but as it stands, it's really not. It's just about kiting those children, and they're a nightmare. They're an absolute nightmare not to get hit by it when you have to do it for so long. But to go into a little bit more detail, as I use bodies here to break people up. The first stipulation is, of course, Zealot difficulty. This is the hardest difficulty in the game. Not to be confused with hardcore mode. Hardcore mode is not the hardest difficulty in the game, it just has permadeath. Very, very different. That is set to survivalist, which is hard, not Zealot. The only thing on hardcore that is set to Zealot modifier is the amount of ammunition and resources that you will find. And there's a floating wheelchair, which is always fun. So, hardest difficulty to boot. Then on top of that, we're going to be using no upgrades, which means I cannot upgrade any of Isaac's suit, any of his stasis, any of his weapons. I literally will never access a bench up until the very final bench of the game, so I can show you that my plasma cutter is base level, everything else is base level, and I haven't been touched. I would love to do the entire game dressed in this ridiculous outfit, but you have to put the suit on, which means the no shop aspect of my run is going to mean no buying anything from the shops. I am going to be accessing the shops because it's mandatory, and then at the end of the game I'll of course be buying the contact beam, even though technically it was free, because on PC you can get any weapon you want at the beginning for free for some reason, which is really bizarre, some kind of DLC thing. So technically I didn't buy anything, I just got gifted it, but you know, semantics. And I will be using the shops to sell my equipment because I'm going to oftentimes be overburdened, and I wanted to see how many credits I could get by the end of the game. Which, spoiler alert, it's about 500,000. Which is quite nice, but I can't use them, so. And then the final stipulation is to take no damage, so I'm going to be taking no damage and getting hit 0 times. I will not have any of those little scrubbers grab me, even though technically they don't cause damage as long as you get them off and there's not too many on you. I will not be spat at by the puker, which technically doesn't do damage unless you get unfortunate. It just kind of slows you down as a status effect, but that will not be happening. There will be no hits, there will be no damage. And we have a pretty big fight coming up here, and I decided to get a little bit creative with it. I wanted to see if I could put up a little bit of a barricade of items to stop the necromorphs from coming around that right-hand side, so I could funnel them down the left-hand side, because this is the biggest fight so far. It's not necessarily that difficult or that long, and compared to some of the stuff you're going to do later on, it's really, really simple, but at this moment in time, I didn't really know how much leniency I had with ammunition, and that's one of the things that's going to really shine a light in this run, because there's going to be moments where I'm very wasteful with my gun, and there's going to be moments where I can't be wasteful, so I have to be really proficient. And this spawn is an interesting one, because it's just a bunch of standard slashers. Standard slashers will generally lose a limb in 1 to 2 plasma cutter shots, and then if you grab the limb with stasis and fire it back at another limb, you will kill them. You do not have to shoot them though if you want to get really, really creative. You can pick up things in the environment and hit their limbs with them. It can take anywhere between 1 to 5 or 6 hits from the random junk you can pick up, because I don't really know the damage that it deals. You can do the same with bodies as well. When you pick up a body and throw it at a necromorph, they do this really interesting shuffle sideways animation where they give you their other arm, and you can keep on just flinging the body at them until you break a limb, and then grab the limb and kill them with it. And if you're going through a room and you need to not use too much ammunition, that's a good way of doing it. Or contrarily to that, if you want to punch them, which is not very advisable, because after the beginning when you get the weapon, you have to punch the necromorphs a ton to kill them. And unless you hit the limb, you have to punch them way too much. But one of the things you can do, of course, is you can run towards them and then spin around and run away to bait the slash. Punch them once, do not punch them twice now because you won't kill them, and you get stuck in recovery and they attack really quickly. And then do that until you break a limb and kill them, which can be good if you've got one enemy and you want to save 1 or 2 shots of the plasma cutter. But it has to be said, the game is dynamic in the ammunition that it gives you, and then it is quite generous with it. I spent the majority of this run with over 50 plasma cutter rounds, and I was quite comfortable in the knowledge that I had 50 plus plasma cutter rounds. So if you are really good with your shots, and you use the stasis and the telekinesis to its full abilities, you won't really have any ammo problems. The only time I had problems with ammunition were a couple of the big fights on the Ishimura that I skipped because I didn't have the time to shoot everything, because I would have been in a really bad spot afterwards. And then there's a couple of moments in the Gov Central building at the end of the game. And then of course the final boss. The final boss, you can run out of ammo if you get unfortunate, and then there's nothing really much you can do, because you're going to have to punch a brood, or the pack, sorry, they're not called the brood, are they? So, which is the kids. If you punch a kid and you get away with it, good for you, because it's really difficult to do. And it's one of the problems with the final boss in the game. Traditionally, when you come up against the pack, you can kill one of the kids, and then you can use his body and throw them into the rest of the pack. And it's a super efficient way of not spending any ammunition and killing them. It makes them an absolute breeze. I don't like to do that though, because I really like shooting them, which is something we'll speak about when it happens. But this is our first encounter with a puker. I don't think that's his name, but it's what I'm going to call him. I'm not going to be handling the pukers the way I should be handling them at the beginning of this game, because I was just trying to get back into the spring of shooting limbs and getting my accuracy up and everything. But what I should be doing is waiting for them to do their second puke, their long-range puke, where they telegraph it with a moan, and they fire like a globule of pus and mucus and vomit and everything. And if you catch it and fire it back, it's a very dangerous explosive device. And whenever you see that enemy, that's what you should do. But you need to bear in mind, they will only do it at range. If they're too close, they will do a vomit that has really, really good range and cannot be caught. So don't even mess about with it. But get the puker at a range, shoot him to stop him if he's moving forward too eagerly, and then watch him telegraph, catch his puke, and then kill things with him. The pukers are so good at killing enemies that if you have one just ambiently and you can control him, you can use him to kill his friends and not have to use any ammunition, which is something I'm going to be using in a terminal room later on in the game. But there's my ammo just there. We've just gone above 50 shots with the plasma cutter. Everything's going okay. Watch out for the jump scare here with the balloons. Plenty of those in this game. You're going to have to get used to it. And we're just going to be picking up resources and moving forward. I'm going to be stamping everything. I'm going to be grabbing as many things as I can. I will be saving the nodes, obviously, for the node rooms, because I'm going to have a lot of them, because I can't put them on my suit. And here goes the window smashing through, which, on mouse and keyboard, when you play these sections, guys, they're absolutely terrible. Watch my aim compared to what you've just seen in the video. See that? Looks a bit strange, doesn't it? It looks like I've completely forgotten how to aim with a mouse. Well, guess what? The sensitivity and the mouse acceleration that you have to use all those configuration files to fix and all those mods to fix to make mouse feel nice on this game, all of that doesn't work on those sequences. So your mouse feels like somebody's pushing your hand every time you move it, and the sensitivity's all over the place. It is horrific. And you might think, well, luckily it's only in certain sequences, right? Well, the problem is it's in a lot of sequences which can get really bad. So any 0G area is plagued by it, and there's nothing you can do, you just have to adjust to it. Any section where Isaac is like hanging from a roof and has to shoot things is plagued by it, which is kind of frustrating. But now we're at the shop. You have to get your suit here, guys. There's nothing you can do. You have to buy it too. It's 1,000 credits, and this is all the DLC that I mentioned. There's a million suits and a million guns that I've never even seen before. Because in my original Dead Space 2 run and my original experience with the game, when I did all the achievements and everything, I didn't have any DLC. I've never seen the rivet gun before. I've never used the rivet gun. I've never seen those blue conduit rooms before. There's like so many things that was in the game that I never saw because I didn't have it. So it's quite interesting coming back and seeing all the different things. And I love how good the game looks as well. Obviously, some of the textures are a little bit rough, some of the aliasing is a little bit noticeable, but other than that, I think this game is aged superbly on PC hardware, where the lighting still looks fantastic. It's running at like 300 frames a second or something ridiculous. I've got it at 144 Hz, I've got a slightly adjusted FOV. The game runs like a dream, it really does. But here is the tripod, and I'm just going to be stasising him and then blasting on his arms. Nothing fancy here, guys. You could probably pick up the boxes and fire them at him and try and do that to save ammunition, but it just isn't really worth it. I did trying to beat him up. I did a bit of a practice run on stream. Oh, that was a miss. That was a nice sidestep of damage as well. Very lucky. But I practiced trying to punch this boss to death, because you have a free resupply of stasis, and he's not that difficult to run away from if you bait his horizontal swing. This enemy is really easy to control, and I'm going to show you evidence of me controlling him when we take on the infinitely respawning tripods in the area later on. Something worth noting too, the physics in this game are crazy. I don't remember them being so crazy on console. Maybe they are, I'm not too certain, but there's been some really strange stuff happening on PC, which has definitely elevated this run more than it normally would be, because it's so goofy and so silly and so much fun to see ridiculous stuff happening. And you can see it when you restart a checkpoint. The game loads so quickly, even though a couple of the loads are a little bit longer than I'd like, but it loads so quickly usually that you see the physics being applied to the game world, and you see bodies go from being inert to flipping in the air, and it leads to all kinds of crazy gymnastics and strange moments, and I've jumped at bodies moving because the physics being applied and things like that, and stuff you wouldn't really notice, but it's pretty fascinating. But Chapter 1 as a whole is probably one of the easiest chapters in the game. It's introducing you to the concepts, it's checking your aim, checking your ability to use the stasis and kinesis, it's giving you a shop, it's teasing you of what more is to come, and it's setting up this run. I'm not going to call it a walkthrough, guys, because it's not a walkthrough. Could you use these videos to help you play the game? Definitely. But nobody can help you play the game to such a degree where you can do it under the stipulations that I'm doing. Only you can do that. But thank you for watching, welcome to this project, and you take care now.